All right, three, two, one. All right, I want to thank you, Dennis Kennedy, for coming on to my podcast. And Dennis Kennedy, he is the founder of a new media website here in Hawaii. It's called Barefoot News Hawaii, correct?
That's correct.
And I wanted to bring him onto the show so he can talk about his news outlet and the kind of articles that he's doing and what got him started into this whole process. But before we get into that, can you just give a little bit about your background, where you're from, what brought you to Hawaii?
Well, that could be a long story, but we'll keep it short.
Yeah, I'll get the summary.
Originally from Ohio, and in 2003 we came over. My in-laws had retired here, so we came over and visited them. We were getting ready to move to South Florida, down around Fort Lauderdale, and we're flying back. And my wife said I'd rather live in Hawaii, so 6 months later we moved to Hawaii.
That's awesome. What did you do in your regular life before?
Before Hawaii?
Yeah.
I had actually built out a national lighting maintenance company. We used to take care of about 10 to 12,000 buildings around the country every month, including buildings in Hawaii.
Oh, wow. So you have been here many times before, I'm assuming?
Nope, I'd never been here till I came and visited the in-laws in
Oh, wow.
2003. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's kind of like when I came here, 2006 was the first time, that was it. And then I stuck around, yeah.
Been here ever since, not going anywhere.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the Barefoot News Media, how you got started with that, what really made you want to get started with that in general, considering we have like the Honolulu Star Advertiser, Civil Beat, and then the regular news sources, yeah. What made you want to start your own news outlet?
Well, I've always kind of followed politics, and then during the last presidential election, and just watching the mainstream media and even the local news here in Hawaii as to what was going on in regards to Donald Trump and just conservatives in general, what was taking place. And we live in a very blue state, so I just kept coming back to how do I get a conservative perspective out there? Not some crazy right-wing thing, but some conservative point of views, because I think there's a lot of people in Hawaii who are conservative and don't even know it. They have conservative values. So I just went ahead and I started putting it together, and I think we published our first article in early October of last year, and we just keeping at it.
Yeah, I like that because I found out about the Barefoot News Media from Civil Beat.
Chad Blair
Yeah.
wrote a great article for us.
Yeah,
and he was very fair.
Back in February. Yeah, so I was surprised. So when I went over to the Barefoot News website, I was checking out some articles, and yeah, they seemed pretty fair. I mean, there was one about the unions, so automatically in my head I was like, oh, it's probably anti-union. And then I read it, and I was like, oh no, that's pretty pro-union. I said it's.
Yeah, we're not some right-wing, fanatics out here. We got individuals who write for us that are probably more middle of the road conservatives. Not all of them are even Republicans, but some of them, they like to write articles. Sometimes I ask them to go a little bit more to the right, but I'm trying to have an open forum for those people who want to write articles.
Yeah.
And contribute articles and their perspectives as to, what's happening here in the state, or even those things that are happening nationally that impact our state.
Yeah, and I think in Hawaii, if you look at how people vote, it might be a blue state, but I think you're tapping into something there with the conservative voices, because in the Democratic Party, there's for sure a lot of conservative Democrats who are more like fiscally conservative, socially liberal or progressive, yeah, which is how I consider myself. That's how I enjoy your articles, because they seem really fair, really balanced. It's not too opinionated. I can't stand reading Star Advertiser or things much anymore, because everything, even if you look at Facebook, everything is Hawaii. So it kills me when they want to bring in like the racism and all these things that the mainland news articles are all about. And they try to do it here, and it just loses me, because it seems like they're not in touch with reality so much.
Well, not here in Hawaii. I'm not even sure they're in reality with the mainland. But here in Hawaii, I mean, you just have to look at the diversity that we have here. And for probably 99% of people get along, regardless of what they're, where they're from or what their background is. I've met people from all over the world here.
Yeah, same. Same.
My kids are half Hawaiian, or my grandkids are half Hawaiian. So it's a situation here in Hawaii where I don't really think what's happening on the mainland is taking place here.
Yeah, no, and I agree. So when I see some of those same talking points being used, it really drives me nuts. So, yeah, your page is really it's refreshing. I enjoy looking at it. You got some pretty good social media presence going on.
Well,
the
thank you.
Instagram. The website is barefootnewshawaii.com, and even today I was just cruising through before I came here to sit down with you, and a lot of the articles, I like this. I like this one. It was the real reasons for Susan Ballard's resignation.
Yeah, we got a lot of reads on that.
Yeah, and then you were mentioning before that people can contribute. You have set writers, or is it just people can contribute if they wanted to randomly?
People can contribute. We've had it happen both ways. I have a couple of writers who write regularly, and then we have a lot of people who send us articles they would like to see written, and then we have people who just want to contribute and get an article out there that's a little bit more conservative perspective. And so we have contributors. We have all types of people that that do provide articles for us. It's we're really trying to work it as an open forum, even if there's a liberal perspective that is of interest. We'll probably even print that just to show both sides of what's going on.
Oh yeah, and that's awesome. And you were mentioning before, and I had seen, and Chad Blair mentioned in the Civil Beat article about they use they don't use their real name. The term is escaping me. Is it a pseudonym or
a pseudonym or something like that? Yeah, I don't even know what you call it. An alias, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have some people who are, I'll say, in sensitive positions, and they don't want to use their name. Some people just use their initials. It's a situation. I think that they feel that being a outward conservative Republican is not a good thing to be in Hawaii. I mean, people actually fear that it's going to affect their business.
Yeah.
Me, I am who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a conservative first.
And it's interesting because, like we were discussing before we even started this, like I think a lot of people, they misconstrue the parties in a sense, like you're either this or you're that. But I think a lot of people are kind of just in the middle, but they're very passionate about one or two things that a particular party might represent in a sense. But I still feel like at the end of the day, people still are pretty rational. But it's just there's a lot of people are stuck on these one or two items, and that's how they vote. And
well, you have the extremes, right? You got the far right, and then you got the crazy far left. And it's a situation where I think that most people in my lifetime are middle of the road. And I think you mentioned that earlier. A lot of people are concerned, and it's kind of interesting to say this, but they'll say that they're fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Sometimes that doesn't work so well because a lot of the liberal doctrine, if you will, or the programs cost a lot of money.
yeah,
So sometimes it's kind of interesting when people tell me that. But I'm a conservative. I'm fiscally conservative, but I don't really care that much in regards to an individual's background. You're a good person or you're not a good person.
yeah, and I'm the same way. I can sit down and talk story with anybody,
Absolutely.
regardless. I mean, unless you're just outright evil.
And they're out there.
But even that, it might be interesting to sit down and talk to somebody, and only because to try to get into their mind, figure them out. Like,
Right.
why do you
Right.
think that way? What motivates you?
Yeah. Well, with the division of going on right now in politics, and people can't be friends because they have different political views.
Yeah.
Seems pretty insane to me. I don't judge you based on what your political views are.
Families torn apart.
Torn apart, unbelievable.
Yeah, and like I get it. I have friends who didn't support Joe Biden, but they just voted because they didn't like Trump. Like period.
I think a lot of that happened.
And then I have friends who loved Trump, just wish he'd never had social media, but just loved like some of the policies and things that he did. And it's even interesting now because you see, as Joe Biden strips away some of those policies, things are falling apart. And then he's also keeping some of those policies because they did work. So it's interesting. I think everyone should just have a vested interest in the country. And then, okay, if you want more social welfare programs, well, I don't think that there's anything against it so much, but it's like that costs money. But then the other side of it for me is like, well, I would rather fund maybe more money for food stamps for people. But I also want government to cut waste, like a lot of it. Like I work for the
that would
state.
be a real good start, just cutting the waste.
Because the problem is like, even here in Hawaii, at every turn they're raising a tax, raising a fee, but they're not getting rid of waste.
Right.
And what they're doing with these extra taxes is they're wasting this on new departments, new studies, but it's not doing anything to benefit the people, yeah?
Right. Well, in politics, when they tell you that they're cutting the budget,
Yeah.
they're not cutting last year's budget. They're just cutting the percentage they were going to raise the budget this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they call that a budget cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still a budget increase. And, the money is absolutely gets wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at situations talking about social programs, whether that's welfare or food stamps, people need help.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that people do need help, but we don't need it generation after generation after generation, that are dependent on the government.
Yeah. And that I agree with. Like I grew up on food stamps, but my mom was working 2 jobs and doing night school to eventually get off of that. It is interesting that you see a lot of these communities where it is generational benefits, the public housing, the food stamps, and everyone kind of blames like education, let's say. But for me, it's like, I don't know. I think it's your politicians' responsibility to, if you elect them to like city council, they should be doing initiatives to drive the economy more so than more of what we see is where they're just worried about like the next tweet that they're going to make and things like that. Like what policies are you doing to help drive the economy?
Well, that's quite a concept, isn't it?
Yeah, like
That the elected officials would worry about taking care of the people. And
it's funny because even here in Hawaii, and this is every state, you get those politicians that they tweet. They're like, oh, we're gonna help. We need to stand up for our people. We have members of Congress who've been there their entire life.
you mean like Joe Biden?
Yeah, and you're like, wait a minute, how are you gonna help me? Like, you've been there how long, and what have you done this whole time?
Like Joe Biden?
I will give Joe Biden this. He did that 94 crime bill, which fucked up a lot of people's lives. A lot of people's lives to this day destroyed. And I believe in redemption in a sense, but I think he genuinely, especially after working under Obama, it kind of opened his eyes, and I think he genuinely wants to try to change that and fix that, but I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing...
Well, I don't see it happening, and if he keeps on the track that he's on right now, he's going to be a worse president than Jimmy Carter in my lifetime.
Yeah, I've seen people talking about that. See,
I remember gas lines.
I'm lucky. I drive a motorcycle,
Yeah, and you probably weren't even alive then.
Yeah, I was not. And but yeah, so it's interesting to see. And the Democrats, they have full control of the government pretty much, but one of the things that everyone always talks about at the grassroots level, especially, is Citizens United, getting money out of politics. Mm-hmm. I don't see any talk. I don't see anything about that going through Congress, overturning it.
Well, they'll talk about it.
Yeah.
They just don't do anything about it. And a lot of times, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican.
Yeah.
It seems like once you're elected, all you're concerned about is getting reelected.
Yeah.
So it's a situation up there, whether it's on the local level or the grassroots level, nationally, whatever it is, we need people that are going to accomplish something. And you can say what you want to about Donald Trump and his mean tweets,
Yeah.
but he accomplished something. Let's take a look at gas prices. Well, I'd take some mean tweets over the gas prices, because in my normal day-to-day business, that's costing me an extra $5,000 or $6,000 a year just with the rising gas prices here in Hawaii.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, it goes back to like people are so driven to be one or the other, cannot be in the middle. You're
Oh
a
no, you got to
Republican
be one or the other. You got to
you're
vote
Democrat.
D or you got to vote R.
And it just kills me because I just want somebody who's gonna run, and like the new mayor. Okay, I like the new mayor because he seems more of an executive. Now people are criticizing him. Oh, he's been there 4 months. What's he done to clean up Chinatown? Because that's where I live. What's he done for homelessness?
He's been there 4 months.
Yeah, like this is. I challenge anyone to win a seat and do anything. And really, in like the first year, it's a lot of red tape.
Yeah, there's a lot of red tape, and you're still getting your staffs together. Even if you look on the national level, and Biden, who I'm not a Biden fan, but it does take him time to get everybody in place.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's done some damage in the first 4 months. So, in my opinion, there's people that just love him, but I'll take the mean tweets and get some action done.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily blame him for like the pipeline deal because it was hacked.
I do, though, for shutting down
Oh, the Keystone.
Keystone pipeline.
Yeah,
That's a huge mistake.
what do you think the impact would have been? Because the Keystone pipeline wouldn't even be completed. Yeah, so this still would have happened.
Yeah, but you also have to look at it that we were in energy independent under Trump,
Yeah,
and now we're not.
yeah,
Okay, because he shut that down. He's cost jobs not only here in the U.S. but Canada, even in the U.K. So he is, he's done some damage more long term. Gas prices, they just don't just start going up.
yeah. It's interesting, like with the green energy movement, people tend to think like, okay, if you just ban fossil fuels, we'll all have renewable energy, but that's not.
It's not reality.
And what I love is especially the left, they all want to help poorer people and those disenfranchised, but they don't realize a lot of their policies directly impact the poor negatively.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people want jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody's out there wants to be dependent on the government, but that's a situation that the left does to garner votes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate to say that they would do that, but they're in the middle of dividing the country again by race and sexuality, and call it divisional politics, whatever you'd like to call identity politics. And I don't live my life that way. I don't think most people live their life that way.
Yeah.
But there's kind of divide and conquer, and if we can get everybody hating each other and make it sound like conservatives are racist and homophobic and everything else. I got friends from every spectrum.
Yeah, same here.
Still doesn't mean I can't be a conservative.
It's not even worth, like, I don't know. I usually don't even get into those arguments with people, because I think if you set out and you're already assuming that everyone with a different opinion is a racist or a bigot or
Wrong.
it's just like there's no point to argue with you, because at the end of the day, I gotta go to work. I gotta pay bills. You ain't doing nothing for me. So
It's the bottom line.
I don't care. I still would hang out with you, go have beers and stuff, like whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't particularly get so involved in those discussions. Maybe if it was on a podcast, I would, but just out in my daily life, I have no need. Yeah.
Well, you're not thinking about what's going on. Like you said, you're trying to get through the day, make a living, pay your bills, take care of yourself, take care of your family, do something positive in your community.
And then what year did you get to Hawaii, you said?
I got here June 28th, 2004.
2004.
That's when I actually moved here.
In 2004, I was, oh my God, 19.
Yeah.
And so you've seen, because just for me, when I got here in 2006, when I look around Honolulu, it's completely different in a sense of like when it comes like to homelessness, the crime, the
It's
drugs.
all on the rise.
Yeah,
And I can remember years ago, out Waianae side where like Miley Beach Park, I mean, that was a big homeless encampment. And, you know, they cleaned it out and they cleaned it up. And I feel for the homeless because they got to go somewhere.
right, right, right.
But, you know, and what do you have out there? They're finding all kinds of little, you know, crack baggies and needles and, you know, all kinds of stuff out there. So, you know, the homeless is an issue. But the bigger issue is when I moved here, gosh, 17 years ago now, I don't remember gun violence. I don't remember people being shot.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And now it's really all that's on the increase. And it's hard to understand. But perhaps some of it has to do with COVID and people don't have jobs. And, you know, I don't have an answer for that one.
Yeah, it's uh, that's an interesting one. The increase in violence because it was going up even before COVID, and especially in Chinatown where I live, like we've had multiple murders, and I assume it's always just drug related when they're murdering each other like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think most people make that assumption, but
Like,
it's still murder.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I just, yeah, in a sense, like I wonder, like why, like where it's coming from. I know there was, allegedly, there was a guy who was controlling some of the youth in the Kalihi area. So what he would do is he would take the youth because they don't get as much jail time and their sentence is lower.
Right.
So he was sending them out to like Chinatown and other areas to rob people and
Wow,
things
I hadn't
like that.
heard that.
Yeah, and there was an article about it. I'll have to pass it to you after here. I'll look it up. But I've heard of people doing that before. Back home in Pittsburgh, they used to do that. Mm-hmm. They used to, because everyone knew that. Like you're younger. I had friends who were involved in gang violence, and they would be the ones that would go in and get locked up because your time is less.
Yeah.
And then the major guys at top. But
Well, you know, talking about crime in general, we actually have an article to be posted tomorrow, which is what, Tuesday,
yeah, the 18th.
the 18th, and it's actually about Hawaii ranking lowest in the country in the gosh, how do I want to say it? In regards to cops and their jobs. It's not a place that a lot of people are interested in being cops because
Wasn't it because of like the pay?
the pay. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of factors that come into play for it, and that is one of them is pay, the crime level, the cost of living. There's a whole lot of factors that come into play with it, but
Because even for me, I've applied to HPD, I think like 4 times, and I usually take the exam and then I get invited to go through the process. But somewhere along the process, I always back out because it's just the culture of HPD, the corruption and things like that still hasn't been weeded out. It eats me up inside just thinking about joining. So I always just I know a lot of good officers. Everyone does.
right.
But until they're also willing to weed out those bad elements, which is complicated.
Well, as a kind of a catch-22, you got to have the cops, and if you can't get other cops, how do you weed out the bad cops?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's a shame that it's that way, and you know that's not unique to Hawaii.
Of course.
You know, it's everywhere. I got a very good friend who was the police chief in my hometown of Toledo, Ohio, and he's now, I think he's a year older than I am, and he's the police chief in Naples, Florida now. And he used to just tell me all kinds of stories that, you know, of what goes on in the police departments, good cops, bad cops. Matter of fact, I found out my neighbor before we moved here was not such a good cop.
Oh, really? Yeah. In Pittsburgh, we had a lot of corruption within our government. Our mayor was brought up on charges. When our new mayor came in, the old mayor was brought up on charges, so he didn't run. And then the police chief got brought up on charges, and a bunch of people went down. And what the new mayor decided to do, which I think they should do here, is get a chief from outside. A lot of people are against that here, but I think it really works because you get rid of those kind of internal connections, and I think it helps weed out the corruption in a sense.
Well, you got a whole different set of eyes.
Yeah.
And you don't have perhaps family or, uncles or friends or whatever that are on the police force. So, you don't have any, I don't know, obligations there at, that point, or preconceived notions of, who's doing what. So I think from the outside it's good.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I think it's probably hard for sure. Like once you get in there, though, trying to get everyone to rally behind you because everyone's mad.
Yeah, everybody's mad they didn't get a job. But,
Yeah.
But there's the flip side of that too. I mean, cops don't make enough money.
Yeah.
They're not paid enough, kind of like teachers, right? They don't make enough money. And they're two critical aspects of our society that get shortchanged. And then they start doing perhaps that overtime that's not really happening,
Yeah.
or the corruption leads in. They got
Yeah.
to get some money on the side, and just pay them, but hold them accountable.
Yeah. Especially here, like, oh man, what are they short? Like, I think the last number I heard was like 250 short just on Oahu.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
That's
But I wouldn't want to be a cop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love the cops to death, but I wouldn't want to be a cop.
I was military police for 8 years. So I kind of like, I enjoy certain aspects of the job, but nowadays I would fear having to use deadly force and be completely justified. But before I go to court, I'm destroyed on social media.
You're
Like,
absolutely destroyed.
yeah. And even if you're found innocent,
Your life's ruined.
Yeah, your life is ruined. And it's just, for me, it's not worth it.
I would agree with that, and I think that that's part of the ongoing problem. We talk about defunding the police. How insane is that?
Yeah, which I always think is that was a terrible slogan to even choose from the Democrats. I believe in shifting funding around, like I don't think HPD should be doing mental health support, shift the funding around. People want social workers to go out into the field.
They're social workers.
Yeah, but my thing is like, has anyone ever seen how much social workers make? Like, they don't make hardly anything. A lot of them make like minimum wage.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know how many people you're gonna hire to handle those situations. You ain't gonna hire
Right.
me. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. You couldn't pay me enough right now. But yeah, it's a situation. I think with the with the police, it's come down to a total disrespect, for police officers, and now some of them have earned that.
Yes.
But if we didn't have social media and 24-hour news, some of these when the police shoot somebody, you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, Walter Cronkite came on for a half hour and he gave you the news. He wasn't making it up. He wasn't trying to create it. He just reported the news. And it didn't matter if it was, conservative or liberal. It was factual. And you said, okay, I got it. Now you got to question anything that's said.
Yeah, and a lot of people will criticize Fox News, or they'll criticize CNN or MSNBC, but I watch all of them because somewhere in between all those stories is the truth. So I try to decipher, like, I hate when the reporters start giving an opinion, or they want to bring up something that I don't even think relates to it, just to blame, we'll just say Trump. Mm-hmm. Or if Fox News wants to blame something on Biden, I'm just like, yeah, but that's a lot of these issues they're rooted in decades of, problems.
Problems and ideology, and how about we just report the facts?
Yeah.
And how about we get rid of this, anonymous source, or at least verify your sources?
Yeah. So
that's what I see different.
Speaking of that, when you use people who submit articles or whatever, what's the verification process for that? Or do you verify?
We verify as best we can, but it's more of an open forum. And if I think it's newsworthy, I'll put it under news, local news or something. If I think it's more of an opinionated, then it'll go under our editorials.
Oh, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, we're not like fact checkers, to make that every fact is true, because
That's hard.
That's really hard to do, and even if it was factual, there's going to be people that say it's not factual.
Yeah, exactly.
So what,
Like,
at this point, we're not making it up.
yeah. And it's funny too, is because even when it comes, everyone wants to use science. Oh, the science says this, but science told us cigarettes were okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, you could use X-rays all the time. You know, like.
Science gets used when it's a situation when it helps you
Yeah,
as
exactly.
a politician. That's when science matters.
Exactly. And so going back to your Barefoot News, how often do you guys update and post the articles?
We publish Monday through Friday. We try to publish a couple of articles each day. But we're trying to move that up to 4. You'll see like 4 featured articles per day is where we're headed to. That can be difficult to do, but we're looking at some different avenues and some different articles that we're going to start posting more on businesses and the effect of COVID on them. We're going to do some environmental stuff. Like I said, it's a conservative perspective, but we also like to report some facts and the reality
sure.
of what's going on there, and whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or liberal or conservative position. We're just trying to get the word out there as to what's happening here locally.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one good person who I still have to reach out to invite on here, the owner of the Irish pubs, Bill Comerford.
Yeah. Well, he's been pretty vocal.
Yeah. I want to sit down with him and kind of just get his whole
that would be interesting conversation.
his whole story. So he might be someone. You might be interested in reaching out to too. Yeah. And then for the Barefoot News, you guys have the Instagram and the Facebook.
We got kicked off Twitter already. That didn't take long.
Sorry.
It's true.
How did you get kicked off Twitter?
It was, I don't know. God, it was like, I don't know.
None of your articles.
3 months later, and we're kicked off Twitter.
Really?
Oh yeah.
But when I was looking through the articles, like I look at it pretty much every day. I look at Civil Beat, Star Advertiser, Barefoot News, CNN, all that every day. I didn't see anything that really would
warrant being
I
kicked
don't
off
know.
Twitter.
Well, you're a conservative, so they probably did. You put that in the Twitter bio?
Oh, I
line or
think
something?
our heading says a conservative perspective.
Oh, okay.
So that probably didn't help us. But but that's okay.
Which is scary, right? That they can
just gone. And then they say, well, if you'd like to get reinstated, you got to do something. We did that. Nah, we never heard back.
And that kills me because I could care less about political parties, like we were discussing before. Yeah,
correct.
Who cares? I just want the right path for the country, because I don't believe that the government should be doing so much that it already does. Like, it drives me nuts when people blame any president for things like at their local level. They're like, oh, the businesses can't operate because of the president's policies. I'm like, oh, yeah, but the president is not a dictator. There's a separation of state and federal.
Well, he's not supposed to be.
Yeah, but it seems like people nowadays, they want the president to make all the rules, and then they just don't even care about their state.
You know what you call that, don't you?
What was that?
Communism.
Yeah.
Socialism at best.
It kills me. Like,
well, people don't want to think. People are sheep.
Yeah. No,
if you can hurt them. I mean, if you look at COVID, I think 46% of the adult population has been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do with all the other vaccines.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are going, I haven't had a vaccine since I was in the Navy in 1976.
Oh, well, hey, you're probably good for life, though. Who knows what they
they shot, you go through the door and they hit you both arms at the same time. You know what they were giving you, but you're going overseas. Okay. But, I just, it just gets hard to figure out the way that people think in general. The people that really matter, and this is what I think the Republican Party, in my estimation, hasn't grasped here in Hawaii. It's the local level. Right after the election, one of the posts I seen from the Republican Party was, is Trump going to run in 2024? Well, how about who's running for local office here in the next several months?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's who we should be worried about. Who's on our city councils? Who's in our state houses and our Senate? Who's the governor?
Which is, it's interesting.
It's crazy.
because, and again, I'm sure Hawaii's not the only place, but like you have politicians that are Republicans. They run as Republicans. They lose. They switch to Democrat. They win only because of the party.
The D.
Yeah. And it kills me because even in the party, they will rally behind that same person. Now, I just don't understand it because they're coming from a certain set of platform beliefs. You really think that they're going to back our platform? It doesn't.
Well, here's my theory on that whole thing, all right? I don't think people pay attention.
Nope.
They get little sound bites,
Yeah.
right? So-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, and they walk up to vote because it's their privilege to vote.
Right.
Don't worry about an ID.
Yeah.
Just vote. I think actually we have ID voter here. But anyhow, they walk up and they don't know who they're voting for. They just see a D or an R.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, Republican, 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 Republican. And that makes no sense to me.
And because I ran for office, so I know, I mean, people don't pay attention. A lot of people will especially when it comes to like races where there's like 5 people or more, most people will just pick like the top name.
Yeah, well, that's Chemo's cousin's second, third wife or something. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's all about name recognition, and I
Yeah.
know that person.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Even
it's crazy.
Even if they're not doing anything.
No.
When I saw an article in Civil Beat, and I think someone else picked it up too, it was Eddie Flores. It's like the owner of L&L or something. He's a nice guy. I've only talked to him a few times, but he was complaining, saying the mayor blew him off. And then the mayor was like, well, no, you asked for a meeting about this thing. You didn't say anything about Chinatown. But everyone's latching on to because he said the mayor ignored him. And everyone's so mad at the mayor for no reason.
That's all that mattered.
But when I ran for office, Eddie Flores had supported my opponent, who is the current state representative. And so for me, actions speak louder than words. I'm highly invested in the community. I'm always out there. I'm always doing everything. I graffiti cleanups, sidewalk cleanups, community events, Chinatown, Lions Club, all these community things.
Sure.
And I try to work really hard to clean up the area within my capacity. But each time when I ran, he supported my opponent, which is fine. But you can't tell me that you care and you want to do better for a community when the people or person that you're supporting is nowhere to be found in that community. Because if I'm supporting someone, yeah, I'm doing it because like legit, like I'm going to hold you accountable. But if you just... So for him to like attack the mayor like that, like for me, it's just crazy because I'm like, well, you're supporting someone who doesn't even show up to like a neighborhood board meeting to tell us what legislation they're introducing. Doesn't even send a staff. Sometimes we get a newsletter, not even, but it kills me. And again, it goes back to people just not paying attention.
Well, they don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I just recently had to vote for our Eva Beach board members, I believe it was. And I could vote for like 11 of them out of however many were on the pages. It was pretty cool, though. You did it online.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I voted for 2.
Yeah.
I only seen 2.
Most people don't even vote for neighborhood board.
Yeah.
I was I'm on neighborhood board. I didn't run for re-election.
I got it all in the mail, and then they gave us a code, go online. It was kind of cool how it worked. But I voted for 2. I could have voted for 11.
Yeah.
I'm listening to these people, and I'm going, reading their little bios and what they're going to do. I'm thinking, what's that got to do with anything?
No, and that's the other thing too. Like a lot of people don't understand the roles. Yeah, everyone wants to, like for neighborhood board, you're kind of just a liaison between the community and the government. But in reality, like the neighborhood board could have power, but it just really depends if your elected officials are involved in the community and friendly with the board or not. If not, it's kind of like a waste of a time. So
right.
I do more outside of my neighborhood board than on it, so I didn't run again because it just wasn't worth that extra meeting a month for like 4 hours.
Yeah, well, and when I look at the, and I would just use the local Republican Party here, all of that is volunteer work, and I'm sure some of them have day jobs. So I can understand where it gets a little bit difficult sometimes to get yourself spread too thin, whether that's a board or even the Democratic state conventions and stuff like that. All that's volunteer stuff.
The Republican Party here, they don't. You said they just had their state convention, yeah?
This past Saturday, yeah.
So they're like reorganizing.
They've elected all their new chair people and so forth and so on. So, they got a new chairperson. They got a new person who is the vice chair of campaigns. Just the whole list of, people. They had some intern people there because people quitting and leaving, and communication guy had to resign because of his QAnon comments.
Oh, yeah, retweeting QAnon.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, that's who you want.
Yeah, Jesus. That's the problem with
Yeah.
But do they do like so the Democratic committees, or on Oahu anyway, we do district chairs. So each House district has a district chair for the Democratic committee.
Yeah, I think the Republican Party's pretty much up. You got your district managers.
Oh,
you
really?
know, you got it. I don't know honestly if those were elected at the at state convention. I just know the the main seats that were filled that are in control of the state, if you will, for the Republican Party. But yeah, you have different. Well, I'm sure just like the Democrats, the Democratic Party, they just happen to be a whole lot more organized.
Oh yes, yeah, and they're super organized. Anytime anyone needs anything, even when I was running, if I needed like people to sign waive or something, you always get people. People are always so willing to go out and campaign and stuff. Like that's the funnest part of running for office was, I guess, just basically like organizing people and seeing like it's fun. It's nerve-wracking because you're like, oh, who's going to show up to my fundraiser, or who's going to show up to sign wave,
Right.
And then when you get surprised and you just have a whole ton of people that you weren't expecting, like that's like, oh, it's nice.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, less gray hair.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've only ever worked on, been involved in two campaigns. One goes way back when I lived in Toledo, and it was a board of education position. And he was a Democrat. And it was funny because I donated my company, which was that I mentioned earlier, large company. Then it was a situation. I think I mentioned it. Well, if not, I had donated to his campaign, and he came back to me a little later and said, "Dennis, I can't take this check." I go, "Why not?" He says, "Because the union said I can't."
Oh,
Because I
wow.
was a non-union shop, right?
Oh,
So I
yeah,
just slipped
yeah.
him some cash anyhow. But
Yeah.
and then the only one that I've remotely been involved here was Lynn Finnegan, who's the new chairperson of campaigns, I believe it is. She's vice chair. And we did some coffees for her when she ran for lieutenant governor a few years back.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's where I recognize her name.
Right.
From. And we also have the friend of mine who ran, Ernest Carvalho. He's in the Aloha Aina Party. You know about that one?
No.
Yeah, the Aloha Aina Party, they just ran. They actually had more candidates running than the Republican Party last election. Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. And to be honest, some of those people running as Republicans they were crazy. I was like, oh man, what are you even talking about? But
Yeah.
the Aloha Aina Party, they're getting their stuff together and they're trying to organize and try to get some seats.
Where do they fall? Are they kind of middle of the road, a little more conservative, a little more liberal?
I feel, just from the little bit that I know about a couple of them, they're more like middle of the road. They just feel that the politicians here are so much more worried about selling out land and space to mainland and foreign investors that there's no more space left for like residents and native born.
I don't think you can argue with that.
Yeah, so their thing is kind of taking the power back to the people. And I can't speak for them. That's just what I see from it. When you look at the democratically controlled state legislature, they're doing nothing but taxing everyone, raising costs of living, and they're not really doing anything to protect the current residents or even the current residents' future kids, because there's no policies in place for the long-term benefit of the people who were born here or lived here for a long period of time, yeah.
And how many have lined their pockets over the rail?
Oh, yeah. How many? Yeah.
On both sides, by the way.
Oh, of course. And it's being a politician in any state, anywhere in the U.S. is like a gravy train. You literally don't have to do anything. Most of Congress has never even passed a bill. Bernie Sanders had what, one?
Yeah.
Rename a.
And Joe Biden, 0.
Well, he did.
94.
Yeah,
Sorry.
he did the guy.
94.
Yeah. Like,
How'd that work out?
but they're there for these decades, and people, I see it as they're getting my tax money. So I look at it as I hired you, I want you to work. If I don't see you doing work, I don't want to hire you again. I'm willing to give someone else a chance. But most voters don't vote like that. Yeah.
Well, it comes down to name recognition and
Yeah.
what we were talking about earlier. People don't pay attention.
Yeah.
They get a little soundbite. They're watching whether it's Fox or MSNBC, which should be taken off the air. CNN, Newsmax, whoever they're, the local news. It's all so slanted and ideological anymore that what are you going to do? I can't get my father-in-law to get off MSNBC.
I like some of the MSNBC.
Yeah.
I like
He thinks JFK is still the party.
I was reading some stuff about that too. But now, hey, I mean, now at least in Hawaii, you're providing an outlet for people on the conservative side.
We're trying really hard.
Because I think the only other outlet that does that is Civil Beat.
Civil Beat, they're more middle of the road, but when Chad wrote that article about us, he did tell me that we are really the only locally on local news site, if you will, outlet who is local from a conservative standpoint. A lot of those conservative things that you read here are coming from the mainland still.
Yeah.
And that actually made me feel pretty good because we try to use all local people too. The residents here in the jobs we're trying to fill, as well as our writers and stuff. We don't take anything off the mainland.
Well, yeah, no, and that's super good, providing the jobs and a local voice. Because even Star Advertiser is not owned locally, huh? Isn't it owned by
some conglomerate somewhere?
Yeah,
probably
somewhere else, which
Yeah.
is it's kind of like when you see some of their articles, it's like copy paste from everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just think if people can get an opportunity to read both sides and actually pay attention instead of reading the headline and telling me what an idiot I am. Okay, I'm never going to make it in Hawaii being a conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, calling me all kinds of names because apparently we can't argue the facts.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because people tend to just go on and they want to be outraged on social media. They'll just read a title, and that's why
That's it.
in the news they purposely put clickbait titles. They kind of have to though.
Yeah. Well, it's all about advertising dollars.
Yeah.
But let's throw some truth in there once in a while.
Yeah.
At least once in a while.
Yeah.
You could even stamp it true, factual.
But can people? Yeah, fact. This is a fact.
Yeah.
Like there was an article about a street where I live on.
Mm-hmm.
So I had posted a reply saying that for the past several years, it's been on a steep decline for, prostitution and drugs, there's homeless laying all over the sidewalk. And somebody commented, BS, it's been like that for decades. Where are you from? Like, okay, so now I'm questioning where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no.
What do you know? It's always been that way.
I was like, no, I've only lived there for years. So I'm just bringing my perspective. I don't know the facts about 20 years ago. Like, people are just so shallow with their thinking.
But it's still there.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it was 2 years, 2 months, 2 decades.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's still there.
It didn't go anywhere.
It is so obvious.
Nobody's fixing it.
Like, even if you walk down the street, there's always this blue truck. It's got really dark tinted windows. It's a really beat up, ugly blue truck. And there's always hookers standing by the passenger side. The guy's always talking to them, giving them instructions. And he sits out there all night, while they're walking up and down the street.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
We call that a pimp.
Yeah. But I'm like, how?
Where I'm from, anyhow.
And it just happens. Police drive past. But to their defense, what can they really do? They're not seeing anything
Yeah.
going on shady-wise.
They're too busy running around giving COVID tickets.
Yeah, So I got a question for the Barefoot Media. Like I said, you have the Instagram and all that. You're kicked off Twitter. You were mentioning before that you were thinking about starting a podcast.
Yeah, we're looking at it. It's, as you know, being a podcaster, that, it takes time and energy and
Yeah.
ultimately money.
Yeah.
Uh, with everything else going on, I don't want to spread too thin. But yes, we are looking to do a podcast, hopefully with some politicians, some local business people, uh, some human interest stories, things like that. We're working toward that. It'll be a little bit down the road yet, but we at least got the equipment.
Yeah, yeah, and it is. When I set out to do this, like I was mentioning, just a hobby for fun, bring people on, talk story, get to know people.
That's how my website started out, Barefoot News Hawaii, hobby.
And then you start realizing, like, oh man, this is a lot of work.
Man, not only that, I got thousands of dollars wrapped up in it.
So it's like, that's motivation to keep it going, yeah?
Well, especially when you get little emails and notes saying you're never going to make it.
Yeah, then it's
You want to motivate me? You just did.
hate is the best motivation.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll admit most people have been pretty supportive of my idea to do this. A lot of them are just compliments because I know like
Sure.
my first couple episodes are going to be not so good, only like the quality as you figure out the equipment. But I appreciate the compliments. No one's really been a hater yet, but
Well, I get compliments too, and I get the, hey, we really need this here. I really love your perspective, and yeah, we get all the compliments. But every once in a while, I get one of those,
what are the other
the hate,
yeah
the haters.
what are the other outlets in Hawaii that are like conservative besides like the Republican Party? Like for you
Well,
yourself, are there other groups?
There's some good groups out there, organizations that you should probably even talk to. One of them is Aloha Freedom Coalition. Have you heard of them?
I've heard of them. I don't know about them.
They
but-
just had a big rally on Saturday.
Oh, that was them at the.
Yeah,
Was
with Prager.
Yeah.
Was out there too, the conservative talk show guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have Knights of Aloha, Rich over that way. They're a very conservative group. I think they're actually a pack.
Knights of Aloha, like
Knights of
KN.
Aloha. Yeah, yeah, Knights of Aloha. So those are more political, packed, activist type groups. I'd classify them at. We're going to start hopefully covering them a little bit more. I just recently shot them out an email. Let me know when they got stuff going on. I've met Rich, real nice guy, local guy, real nice guy. I've emailed a few times with the coalition, Freedom Coalition. But there's some programs out there that are very conservative.
I think once the election time starts rolling around, I think that's when you're really going to start getting more people who want to submit articles or be interviewed. And
Amazing how that happens.
yeah,
I'm just waiting around for the Republican Party to call me now that their convention's over.
yeah, that'll be interesting. I would like to talk to someone who can speak on behalf of the Republican Party, only because since I was an officer in a Democratic Party for so long, and we didn't look like down on the Republican Party, but we just never saw them as organized as like a
You saw right.
like you never take it for granted because the party really doesn't have to win a seat. It's just that candidate that has to win. But we never really felt the need to focus on deterring the Republican Party. Yeah, we just. So
Well, I can tell you that I've written a couple of times about the Republican Party, and I haven't been very nice, okay, because it's been very, very difficult to. At one time, you literally could not get a hold of anybody.
Oh wow.
And nobody returned calls or emails or anything. That's starting to change here a little bit. I know Sydney's in there now as the chairperson. See how it's politically correct. And I hope to sit and talk with her again. She did win the chair. I had met with her previously prior to the convention. If everything she is saying is true, I think you'll see a change in the Republican Party. Lynn Finnegan, another good person, number 2 chair there, if you will. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that they get some organization. And like I told you before, I have a candidate who wants to meet with them, but we haven't been able to do that. So hopefully that'll change here this month.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I mean, there's so many seats. What, 75 total.
Yeah.
But I always say, even with my friend in the Aloha Aina party, I always said, like, if I was in charge of a party, I know everybody wants to win a seat. I said, but for me, I think the focus would be 1 or 2 seats that you can dedicate the most amount of your resources to, because it really comes down to the mailers, getting signs on fences, and the name out there. If they're like really viable candidates, yeah.
I would agree with that. You know, you have to start somewhere. So, you know, what seats do you have the best shot at landing? You know, it's back to the grassroots thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's not be worried here in 2021 as to who's running for president in 2024.
Yeah.
You know,
And to be honest, not everybody's a viable candidate. Anyone can run for office, but not everybody's like a viable candidate. Like if you're a new person running against somebody who's pretty decently liked and they've been there for a decade, that's hard.
Yeah.
But I still think it's possible, but you just have to have a viable candidate, somebody who's charismatic, knows what they're talking about.
and communicate and get down to the community level.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the individual that I'm talking about, Gil, who wants to run for office, and hopefully he will be able to do that here shortly. He's got a lot of good ideas getting right down into the community, and being a minority individual, he talks a lot about the Filipino community here, and you know he's told me, and I kind of have to agree with him. They believe many people in Hawaii, not just Filipinos, have actually got conservative values.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Okay.
I just
They have conservative values. They just don't know it.
yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, faith, family, freedom kind of thing. And some of them just aren't educated. So the exposure is not out there.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's in the churches, you know, the communities and things like that. So he's got a very good plan. And hopefully that will come to fruition and, you know, he can get moving.
Yeah, and it's that's what's interesting too. Like when you talking about Hawaii, when you get into the different ethnic groups, it's really interesting. Like like the Filipinos, in my opinion,
Hard-working
yeah,
group of people.
and very very faithful. They go to church.
Yep.
I always visit. I just kind of view that kind of stuff as like a Republican, you know, characteristic.
You would think.
And even when I was campaigning, a lot of them would ask me where I stand on certain issues. And where they stand is a little bit more conservative than where I would stand. But, you know, it was always interesting to me. But again, you have to have that D by your name.
Got to have the D.
Because the R, they won't even support you. And I think it's because...
Not all of them, but the
Yeah.
majority of them. Yeah.
But I do give it to the Democrats because... and I'm a Democrat. They're really good at labeling, and once they label somebody, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you label the Republican Party as anti-immigration, anti-immigrant like that, then no
Racist,
immigrants.
homophobic,
Yeah.
you know, the whole works.
Yeah, but
It's called sound bites.
yeah,
I'm none of those, by the way. Okay.
yeah. Hey, I don't even look for sound bites. I just whatever's the most rational decision I feel should be made. I just can't. It just kills me how constantly we just keep reelecting these same people
Over and over and over again, and nothing changes.
Yeah, which again, like I was mentioning before, is kind of another reason why I wanted to do the podcast. It's a hobby, but also, again, like people aren't as educated. If you haven't worked in politics or been involved, you don't see what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, you bring that perspective. That's what's going to be great about your podcast. Is
I
you
appreciate
have
that.
perspective.
And that's a perspective I want to bring. And in the end, I don't dislike anyone or anything. I just think people should be more educated. There's a lot of lawmakers who do want to do good things, but they can't because they're not part of, you know, let's just say like the leadership faction. They're kind of like, maybe if they're new, if you're a new elected official, you have like no power.
None.
You really have to be there like 6 years to gain any seriousness. Yeah. And if you're not in good with the leadership, then you're just what they call Siberia.
Don't you think that's where term limits would help?
Yeah. The only difference I think about the term limits is my first boss she put it in a perspective that I kind of understood, where she had been there, I think, 13 years, and it took her that whole time to get a new library in her district.
Yeah, but how much of that had to do with the career politicians that had been there for 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah, true. True.
As I try to be the devil's advocate,
Yeah,
if
no,
you had
yeah.
people changing out every couple of terms, I mean, the president's got a term limit.
Yeah.
So if they change them out, then everybody I would think would have to work a little bit better together than having to battle, a
Yeah.
Speaker of the House that's been there for 40 years. And
I feel like there should be term limits. Like every other position, executive position, has a term limit, right? So why not the legislature?
why not the legislature?
Yeah. Even the Supreme Court, I think there should be a mandatory retirement age or something.
I would go with that.
Only
but-
because principles change over time, I feel. So
Yeah, and they're not there to make law.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to abide by the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that liberals and conservatives look at that, look at that differently, and
Oh, yeah.
what the Constitution has been laid out to do.
Yeah.
That's going to be an ongoing battle, but that's not all bad.
No, for
It's
sure.
not all bad to have that debate and those different perspectives on things.
I just think, who was it? It might have been 60 Minutes. Nah, I can't remember which. They were just discussing about, maybe it was Vice News. I don't know, whatever. But they were talking about how each side just uses the Supreme Court to get through legislation that they couldn't get through Congress. So that's why, it's scary for me, because if you can't get it through the legislative body, then you have someone battling it at the local level to kick it up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I'm not that old, but I'm pretty sure the founding fathers weren't thinking that way.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I'm anxious to see what happens with this Second Amendment case,
Right.
That's going up to the Supreme Court. Because I'm a Second Amendment supporter.
So am I.
I'm a firearm owner. I don't think that the Second Amendment is just kind of like a privilege. I think it's there for a specific reason, and I think because we've never had to battle an internal tyrant, an authoritarian dictator, anything like that, people kind of just brush off the Second Amendment.
Right.
But for me, just because I might not need it today doesn't mean like my grandchildren won't need the Second Amendment. What was it? When Hong Kong was, they were trying to pass that law so that if you were basically a political dissident, they would extradite you to China.
Right. Nice.
They were chanting Second Amendment because they
Sure.
don't have that over
They
there.
don't have that, and look what happens.
And the police were crushing down on them.
Well, I back the Second Amendment. I'm not a gun owner, and I don't have any desire to own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the point. And look, things to me, I just try to look at them very simply.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody you're going to be talking to here is going to be listening to is going to say, "I've heard that before."
Yeah. Oh, of course.
The
Yeah.
bad guys don't care.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Right?
That's
You want to take my gun if I had one.
Yeah.
A law-abiding citizen. The bad guys don't care.
Well, they'll argue. They'll say, we don't want to take your gun. We just want to put limits on who can have the gun. Now,
It starts with limiting.
yeah, I see it a different way. I see just like you were saying, first is this check, and then it's this registration, and then it's this, and then it's this magazine ban. And if a magazine holds 30 rounds, that's okay.
Yeah.
In California, there was a case where a lady pretty much emptied a whole magazine to kill the intruder.
Mm-hmm.
Had she been limited to, I think the argument was, had she been limited to 7 or 10 rounds, she would have been, either dead, or they would have robbed her, injured, something like that. She needed at least 20 something rounds, they said, before she was able to hit him.
Right.
So, and I think that just kind of goes to show, like, people who've grown up in lives where they didn't necessarily ever have to struggle or face any type of violence or have anything really to instill fear in them. They don't understand, the rest of the country, They don't understand people who've been in situations where their life was in danger.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all feel good stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't take people's guns. You just can't. The Constitution doesn't allow for it. But they'll nibble away at it. Little law here, little law there, little law here. And pretty soon, people like you and I, who get up every day and go to work, try to do our jobs, and pay our bills, and contribute to society, will be without guns.
Mm-hmm.
But the bad guys won't.
Right. And now they want to limit or they want people who have quote unquote ghost guns. They want them to register these ghost guns. It's just if Al Capone has a 3D printing shop and he's 3D printing AR lower receivers, just because you pass a law doesn't mean he's going to put a serial number on the receiver.
You know what? You are far too logical.
Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And you know what? Why do we take the guns away? Why don't we defund the police?
Yeah, right? Now, and that kind of goes into what I mentioned earlier, is I really think that these foreign countries are subverting the American public the same way we do to them, and they're just really good at it, way better than we are.
Yeah.
The way they're able to pump these messages, anti-gun, the racial division, guarantee you, if you tracked it all back down, it would come from a troll farm in China or
a troll farm.
Yeah. Or like in Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so weird. Like, people let themselves get so upset about these issues, and it's like, again, look at your state legislature. What are they doing?
Not much.
Yeah. Why is there this socioeconomic pool of people who are so disenfranchised? Like, why? And what are your local officials doing to make it better, to pull them up out of poverty? So, kind of got off the rails there on the Second Amendment thing. That's kind of like a passion of mine, the Second Amendment one, though.
Well, it's like freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is when the guy standing next to you is just saying something that curdles your blood.
Yeah.
But he's allowed to say it.
Yeah.
That's freedom of speech.
And don't you... the way I look at it is, it's like a lot of universities, you can't have these discussions and debates anymore.
Not anymore.
But it's also like when they got, what's his name, Donald Trump off Twitter, and then they were banning other conservatives. To be honest, I would rather hear what you have to say so I know what you're thinking, as opposed to not being able to hear what you say, and then you're kind of like the Unabomber. You got some things going on at home that is just going to, blow up one day. Like,
I never thought of that, but that's a really good point.
Like, and that's, again, coming back to like the podcast and things. Like, I want to know people. I want to know what they're thinking, what they're doing. And for me, that just goes with everybody. Like, if you're racist as hell, like you hate minorities,
I want to know that.
I want to know, yeah, because you're not the guy that I'm going to invite to lunch with my friends.
If you're a homophobe, I want to know that.
Yeah, because you're not someone that I want to hang out with.
Exactly.
I just don't appreciate that kind of person.
You're not a good person.
Yeah.
But I like to hang out with good people.
Yeah. And if you can't express that, if you can't post that on social media, then I don't know. And then now I'm possibly putting myself in a dangerous situation, because now what if I take somebody to an event and one of my LGBT friends is there and this dude just completely disrespects them? Now it's like a reflection on me, but I never knew.
But you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then he gets a few beers in him. Next thing you know, he's screaming and hollering.
Yeah.
Carrying on.
Now I ain't got his back. Hopefully he took the bus or Uber. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't drive him there.
But again, that's kind of why, like, your platform hopefully doesn't get taken off Amazon Web Services or whatever server it's on.
Twitter.
Because you gotta have those discussions. Even like you and I, we're not eye to eye on everything.
No.
But it's okay, because there are things that we are similar on.
And we can discuss it. And guess what? It's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
It doesn't change how I feel about somebody. I just disagree with them.
Yeah.
I disagreed my whole life with my father. I still loved him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's crazy to base what you think about somebody based on their politics. Mm-hmm. But it's the divide and conquer. And we were talking a little bit earlier. I don't remember big discussions or issues with racism in my early childhood. I did, but I don't remember them growing up or in my adult life. And I hate to say this, till Obama became president, and next thing we're doing is having a beer summit.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
with the
next
cup.
thing you know, it's like racist this, racist that. And when people call me a racist because I'm a conservative, that pisses me off.
Yeah.
And it's a situation where, we're using identity politics to gain power. If people hate each other, that can be a very good tool for gaining power.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Hitler did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's why I always say, like, history repeats itself. And
But we don't teach history in schools
Yeah.
anymore.
And I think what was really sad is there's a lot of black conservatives,
That gets shut out.
and they're considered like Uncle Toms, or their own community shuns them. But it's like, it's crazy to me because you can't have an opposing opinion. Now, you can have an opposing opinion and people don't have to like you, but they just get attacked.
Yeah.
Like character attacks.
Yeah. Well, one of the most intelligent people I think that I've ever listened to, and I think she's just terrific, is Candace Owens. And they just shred her.
I don't agree with everything she says. There are some points that I do. I was bullied when I was in school, and what I see, what she talks about is I could agree with, because there's a lot of times where she says things where I do feel like minorities, especially black people, are being used. They're being told since birth that you will never be ahead. You can never get ahead.
Yeah, but who's doing that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, and who's doing that? Let's understand how the Civil Rights Bill got passed. It wasn't by Democrats.
Yeah. It was Republicans.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was Al Gore's dad led that charge against it.
But Al Gore, he's like a piece of paper. That guy's so plain.
Well, he's filthy rich from, carbon,
Yeah.
whatever things he had going on there.
But I always feel like people should be empowered.
I agree.
And when you're not empowered, if you are raised being told that you can't make it because of your skin tone, then eventually that's kind of becomes your reality. You manifest your own reality. Now, it's unfortunate because these kids are raised being taught this, and now when they get older, they've never seen nothing else. So,
But it's one thing to be taught by your parents that way.
Mhm.
It's another thing to be taught in schools.
yeah,
That's what's happening to you.
yeah,
And all you're doing is, you're putting a stigma to them, and they don't believe in themselves.
yeah.
And that's really a sad state of affairs that, we allow that to happen. But I kind of have a theory. Okay.
Let's hear
Since
it.
we're just talking.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way back to the finding of America,
Mm-hmm.
right? What'd the government do ultimately? Screwed the Indians,
Mm-hmm.
right? Got them on reservations, welfare, right? Completely dependent.
Yeah.
Then where'd we go? Let's see. Slavery, right? Slavery's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just insanity. So you free the slaves, and what does the government do? Pretty much starts making them dependent on the government.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that about a bunch of the Alaskans. Once we purchased Alaska up there, what happened to them? But I'm willing to bet they're in a similar boat.
Yeah. You know what? That's
Minority.
true. I never even thought about that.
And I honestly think they did the same thing to the Hawaiians. And
Yeah.
the locals here. Many of them, unfortunately, not all of them. I'm not trying to, generalize and put them all in one system. But, I know a lot of Hawaiian men, as an example, never worked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I know other Hawaiians are hardworking people, but I think they literally did the same thing to the Hawaiians that they've done to minorities throughout American history. Make them dependent on government.
Yeah. Keep them oppressed.
And not that there aren't white folk that
Mhm.
aren't dependent on the government, okay? But we can get in the whole dumbing down of, America too,
Oh yeah.
which is all part of that.
Which in the end, I always try to separate. I hate the racial arguments only because that divides a large population into small subgroups that are all fighting each other. But the overall large population is the poor.
Correct.
I see it as a class issue. The middle class has shrunk. They've gone into the poor. and then the upper class has. I don't even know if it has shrunk, but it's kind of they've gotten wealthier.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a fewer amount of people who are more wealthy than ever before. But if the poor folks banded together and said, "Hey, you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you're LGBT, you're whatever, doesn't matter. Don't care what you do, but are you struggling to pay your car note? Are you seeing these gas prices? You can barely afford it. Okay, well, we should do something together to elevate ourselves up the ladder, you know."
Well, we solved that issue, in my humble opinion, through education and jobs. People want jobs, you know, but if you don't have a plan to create jobs, and I don't mean government jobs.
Yeah.
I mean private industry jobs, you know, you tax the hell out of everybody. You're not educating them, you're indoctrinating them, in my opinion. You know, those people don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's a LeBron James who was homeless at one time,
Yeah.
right? It just, you know, they're just not. And, you know, everybody's not an Elon Musk that,
Right.
you know, but everybody has something they're good at, and they should be able to expound on that and make a life for themselves. But the poor class, oh, I love this stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our poor class is a lot richer than most countries' poor classes.
Oh, yeah, for sure, by far.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying there's, you know, it's all a matter of what country you live in.
Yeah, so when I say poor, I'm just meaning U.S.
Yeah.
Because I used to live in Brazil, and their poor are poor.
Are poor.
Yeah, and, you know, their government's super corrupt too. But their government doesn't have as much social programs as us. So their corruption just seems a lot more. I think we're willing to put up with a lot of the corruption that we know exists because we're comfortable.
Right.
But right now, I think a lot of people are becoming uncomfortable. When those unemployment benefits, the extra 300 or whatever runs out, and when they start putting those the mandatory job searches back, a lot of those jobs that we lost during COVID aren't going to be
They're
there.
not coming back.
You're going to have so many people who are going to be more reliant on government assistance than before.
Was that part of the plan?
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
But
Not to be a conspiracy
Yeah.
theorist, but maybe.
And that's kind of like, and it all goes, I think it all kind of circles back to the idea that I was saying where your local politicians, what are they doing for your economy? You know, here they want to raise the minimum wage, which cool, everyone should get paid a good wage, but how can somebody who runs a small business afford a $15 or $17 an hour minimum wage when they got all these taxes and expenses on top of their, you know, look at the rent.
Yeah. And what's going to happen? You're not going to hire that extra person.
Exactly.
Your hamburger at McDonald's is going to be $14. I mean, you know, there's a lot of factors that come in. It's great to say raise the minimum wage, but having been a business owner most of my adult life,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard. And then in Hawaii, and I'm fine with it, you know, we got mandatory health care
Yeah.
rules here for employees. And a lot of people
And that's why people were
play
getting,
that game, but, you know, we don't in my businesses.
And,
So it's a tough place to do business, and then you're taxing them, and
Yeah.
you're taxing them, and you're taxing them, and you ever go to the store one day, and a tourist is in, I don't know, Foodland or Safeway or something, and they're going, I'm not paying $12 for 3 tomatoes.
yeah.
You know?
Well, it's also interesting. You cross into Waikiki, the prices at the stores there are like way higher than if you just cross the bridge and go into
Oh, yeah,
Don
yeah.
Quixote.
Yeah, and then I always were standing safe. I said, you know, there's a Walmart right up the street.
Yeah.
But I give you an example of that. My daughter, she just recently left her job, and she's doing her own thing, but she worked at a Starbucks in the Hawaiian Hilton Village.
Oh, it's such a nice hotel.
When she went back this last time, when they just started bringing them back for training, you know how much they were paying her to make coffee?
How much?
$30 an hour.
Whoa.
Full benefits. She says, the people, all they do is bitch when they come in. They look at the price of the coffee. It's twice as much as any other Starbucks, right, on the island.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so-
is she just a regular barista, or is she like a manager?
No, just a barista.
Wow. And Starbucks,
That's owned by
The Hilton.
by the Hilton.
Okay.
So it is union. Okay,
Oh yeah, that's why.
$30
Yeah.
to make coffee.
Yeah.
More power to them.
Yeah. Hey, join the labor movement. Join a union.
Yeah, there you go.
I was surprised. And we don't have to talk too much about it, but Amazon, they voted no for
sure.
the unionization at their workplace. I forget where it was, but
Well, actually, I think Hawaii has got the highest union membership per capita in the country. But overall, and this is several years back, I know that. And look, my father was a union. My father-in-law was union. Union membership is down, way down, like 15% of the population or something now.
Yeah.
It's been on the decline for years.
and now with the which one was that? The case, it's escaping me now, but where the unions can't take mandatory dues out.
I think that might have started like in Wisconsin or something, wasn't it? Somewhere on the mainland, wasn't it, that you could opt in or opt out?
Oh, the Janus case is what it was.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember something about that. It's been a few years back.
And that's yeah. So basically, the union was able to just take dues out of your paycheck, but now you could say, "Stop! I don't want to,"
Right.
because it's like even in a state here, you don't have to be a union member, but they'll automatically take union dues out.
Yeah, they
So
took
unless you
them out
tell
of my
them-
daughter's.
Yeah, unless
check
you
all
tell
the
them to
time.
stop.
Yeah.
But being a union member has its benefits.
Absolutely.
If you're a worker, I can't understand how you wouldn't want to be in a union.
Let me tell you a story from way back about unions, okay?
When they were using baseball bats.
Well, pretty much.
Yeah.
In the early 80s, I was in robotics, and we used to go around and put robotic paint systems in different plants, okay, whether they were automotive or whatever. Well, I went to Milwaukee for, I think it was a GE plant, and they did dishwashers, right? Is what they manufactured. And I had to install a robot in there. Well, the robot arm had to be in the concrete, right? It took all day to get 4 screws or 4 holes drilled into the concrete. Okay. The guy comes over, he says, "Hey, break. Come back. Oh, I got to go get my tools." Goes, gets his tools, comes back. Oh, gee, lunchtime.
Yeah.
Okay. On and on and on. It took all day to get 4 holes drilled in the concrete. That's my experience with unions when I used to be in robotics.
My dad was
Now, before you say anything, my dad was a hard union worker, and so was my father-in-law. I don't think either one of them ever missed a day of work, and they worked hard.
and that's what one of the other things. The union is good and bad in a way. Like my dad wasn't a union. He owned his own small remodeling company, and then he worked for other companies too. So he did his thing on like the side. And I used to work with him ever since I was a kid and could drag his tools for him. But he used to hate the unions because they got all the city contracts, all the state contracts, and he used to say how anytime they start a new job site, all new tools. Every site, all new
Crazy.
tools. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then my friend's dad was president of Teamsters in Pittsburgh. And he would even say, like, the union is good for the workers. Sadly, you have to defend those workers who aren't good. They're coming
That's
in
the
late.
biggest problem with the union. They got the guys that are busting their humps, doing
Yeah.
their job, and then you got the other ones that are just taking total advantage.
And
Just
that's
can't get rid of them.
and that's kind of killer. Like I just seen an article that the AFSCME, the head umbrella union, and we just had our because I'm in the union, I'm a director for a union, but we just had the AFSCME convention last year, and we passed some resolutions, I do believe, calling for reform from the police union. And I just saw an article today that it's supposed to be implemented to where unions will encourage good police officers and protect them if they come out against the bad police officers, because they need to weed out these bad cops. And I think that needs to happen at every level.
Every level.
in every union because every you don't have to say any stereotypes. You just say, "Oh, government employee," and everyone's like, "Oh God,
Yeah.
no wonder nothing gets done." You don't even have to say anything. You just say, "Oh, government employee." Oh God, no wonder nothing gets done. And
Well, we'll
I,
go to any government office, be it Social Security or BMW or DMV or anything like that. There ain't nobody in a hurry to help you.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Now, there's always that one
mm-hmm.
over there busting their hump, trying to help people. I'm not trying to categorize them all the same. The problem that you said is this person that isn't doing anything is being protected just as well as this person who's busting their hump.
Yeah.
That bugs me.
And one of the problems is there's it takes so much. So you have to if a worker comes in late repeatedly, you have to do a write up. Mm-hmm. But most of the supervisors in all these work sites were regular workers there too. So when they become supervisors, they're not necessarily leaders. They're just in a new position, mm-hmm. and they don't hold the people accountable. Whether they're friends or
friends or buddies, family, neighbors.
Yeah, or they just don't want to rock that boat, mm-hmm. or it's not worthy. They're like, I don't have time for that. But what happens is now, 5 years down the road, they're consistently a bad employee, but there's no write-ups from 3 years ago. So you can't, there's nothing anyone can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a union steward. I know. And
yeah. Well, you see it.
I see it all the time. And
well, there was a time when unions were extremely important back, when we kind of kicked into in this industry and people were being mistreated and abused and used and, everything else. And
yeah.
unions came along and solved that out. But it's we're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And unions are fine, and unions can protect people. But, what you just mentioned in regards to being able with the police department to say, hey, so-and-so is doing this and that, and not have any retributions for that, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that should be in every industry, because if you're not doing your job, you're not being fair to anybody.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of why, like, a lot of people, when they think of a union, they're just like turned off. But there has to be some accountability. But then the other thing is, like, if you start weeding people out, you start losing dues.
Sure.
Who's
What's
paying?
that come back to?
Yeah, who's paying the executive director's salaries, right?
It's always about money.
And the salary
money and power.
And the salary that some of these guys make is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. Yeah. But, hey, more power to them, right?
Hey, they'll pay LeBron James $50 million a year to put a ball in a hoop.
But at least he's, like, selling merch.
More power to him.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can find somebody to pay you that,
yeah,
more power to you.
It kills me because when I look at, like, the lowest level worker compared to, like, what a lot of these top level guys are making, just like, man, these guys are struggling and you giving yourself a pay bump. That's kind of
that's tough.
Off their dues.
That's tough.
I hate that. That. Their medical coverage decreased, so they're paying more now, and you're giving yourself a little pay bump.
A little pay bump.
A little bonus, huh?
See that a lot, government. Not just unions, government.
Oh yeah, in general, yeah.
Yeah.
But so, let us know what else you got going on, Mr. Barefoot News Hawaii.
Well, we're just trying to grow our audience, like everyone else. We're trying to get the word out there, trying to help those that need some help in regards to their political positions, whether it's for office or they want to get their word out there. I've enjoyed this. I know you're just getting started, but I think it's awesome.
I appreciate it.
And we need this. We need somebody with the straight talk and, just have a conversation about things, even if we don't agree.
Yeah.
We don't have to get nuts.
Yeah. Hey, I don't have to argue. I can just say,
yeah,
okay.
just talk.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
And so, we got some other things, Barefoot media companies. We're getting ready to start a new website that I've been building out. It's called All Sports Hawaii, and it'll literally only be local sports from the youth level, high school to college. Nothing but local sports. So that's another hobby at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're trying to build something out here, not just with the Barefoot News Hawaii, but some other things that we're looking at doing. And it's really, I don't see retiring So, I enjoy doing it, so I'll just continue to do different things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, what is your Instagram handle for if people wanted to look you up? Do you know it?
I'm not sure I know it. I think it's Barefoot News Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Here, I'll look you up.
Janet takes care of all that for me, okay?
Yeah, where's she at?
She is in town right now, but I think she's moving to the Big Island this week, I think, towards the end of this week. I think she's moving back to the Big Island.
Oh, nice. What part of the Big Island, you know?
I'm not even sure.
Shoots.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Instagram handle is just no spaces, nothing, just Barefoot News Hawaii.
There you go. I got it.
Yeah. Actually, I should connect you with my friend Tracy Arakaki. We did the last episode with him. He's into motorsports, local guy.
Yeah.
He used to do motorcycle racing. He founded Punish 'em 808. It's a motorsports entertainment, like news, media coverage.
Nice.
And then he has some pretty big things coming up next year that he's filming and stuff for now. So
well, we're hoped to be up and running for the fall. Sports schedules is what we're shooting for. Still a lot of work to do there, but yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody. I'm not interested in any professional sports, just all amateur sports here.
Okay, yeah.
In Hawaii. So working on that, talking to some athletic directors, coaches, things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I think that'll be a popular one.
I hope so.
More for you to do on your website.
I hope so.
But I'll tell you what, man. I enjoyed the conversation. I think that more of these conversations have to be had, especially in Hawaii, because it really seems that a lot of things are just one-sided, one voice. And again, we may not particularly agree with everything, but I think the more voices that are out there, the more ideas that can be heard, the more we can come up with solutions to the problems that we're all surrounded by,
Well, that's why I think if you look at our website, or anybody out there goes to our website or signs up with us or whatever the case is, you're going to find out we're not some right-wing radical conspiracy going on here. We try to just put the word out there.
Yeah. No, and that's why I liked the website. It just seemed pretty straightforward. I'm not too into the right wing. If I would have saw some QAnon stuff, I'd have been like, no.
Yeah, well,
unless I was just interested in
I started to watch that documentary.
Which one's that?
QAnon.
Oh, was it
the story of QAnon or the story of Q or something? It was on like HBO or Showtime or one of those things, and I think I got about halfway through the episode and said, "You people are insane."
I'm still waiting for Trump to have his inauguration. Thought it was March 14th.
Yeah, well, it's just around the corner.
Yeah,
I meant this coming March.
Yeah.
14th. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
And
really appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe we can do this again sometime again in the future. And
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Okay. Thank you.